晴らしいよね。地球に刻まれた記憶というものは。
The Girl A arc opens at a public briefing at Futo's wind power facility.
Just reminding everyone that clean, self-sustaining power is available whenever people actually want it. The wind farms in Indiana produce as much energy as the average-sized nuclear power plants and can be constructed anywhere. Hell, I live in Chicago and I actually get my power from them.
And yeah, that's pretty much the episode. This politician, Miyabi Kusuhara, using her daughter Asuka as a public ploy in the "Think of our children!" way to get a second Futo tower, one designed by her late husband, pushed through. Her manipulative actions have netted her a lot of enemies and death threats over time, which is why she's hired Shotaro as a bodyguard. Smart thinking. However, when Double transforms to defend against the spine shot at them, Shotaro at this point in the series still trying to keep their identity as Kamen Rider Double a secret from the masses, Asuka gets the idea in her head that Shotaro is her father.
Akiko takes this revelation well.
Now, this attack is revealed to be museum-based, Ryubi finding the new tower design to be a god-awful eyesore.
And to be honest, I agree with the villains on this one. Now in the area around Amanagawa, maybe, but not Futo.
On top of that, Miyabi has been harassing property owners to give up their land for the project, one of such a Gaia Memory production facility. And to be fair to Museum on this, they are for the most part following the law. The land is legally owned and licensed for private use. It's Miyabi that's using underhanded duplicitous tactics to try and get them to give it up for this instead of finding another site, which has painted the target on her back in the form of the facility's manager, Genzo Takamura, who in their dealings repeatedly calls her out on exactly that by example of how she treats her daughter.
This is one of those arcs where the person we're supposed to be siding with acts more awfully than the actual criminal, which, hey, actually happens in real life. But it's acknowledged within the narrative.
Philip completes a lookup on the dopant, determining from one of the projectiles Shotaro recovered that it's likely a water-based one, the prior attacks all coming from areas with water cover to hide or escape into. Thus, to be able to counter them from range... And in addition, the first use of the memory gadgets being used as mobile memory break dealers, with the heat memory used in the Stag phone. Huh, kind of an early wrap-up for this. Yep, Genzo's smart, having one of his underlings use a prototype Gaia memory to distract them so he could go after Miyabi, retreating to the depths when that too is thwarted, as despite his capabilities, the open water would be a death trap for Double.
Come to think of it, we don't have many riders who can fight in the water. In Heisei, it's usually an automatic loss condition. Thanks, Toshiki Inoue!
Still, against Shotaro's warnings, Miyabi continues to drag Asuka into danger in the name of this project, actively neglecting her, while all Asuka does is dote on a doll of a small knight, a gift from her father, and when asked, proclaiming that when he left them, he became a knight of Futo to protect her, the same role Double has been serving. That's why she thinks they're her father, even though that too was another falsehood to keep Asuka oblivious to the truth around her.
What this episode is addressing with the Asuka subplot is the age-old adage that innocence is bliss. It's not. And in fact, keeping someone ignorant of something they should know or be learning to deal with can be as, if not more harmful than keeping them in the dark to the truth. Wiping away violence on television or in popular media is not going to wipe away the violence in real life. Excusing horrible actions committed by someone in a story only invokes the idea that a real person that has no incentive to change themselves should be allowed to commit them again.
But it's also showing that just revealing this lie without context can be just as harmful, as it would destroy this little girl's worldview that her father is watching over her, and parallels how Shotaro still can't bring himself to reveal to Akiko that Sokichi is dead. It's not out of malice or delusion that this is done, but out of kindness and it not being their place.
And thus, that's the key. We may lie to our juniors to protect them, but with the understanding that this lie should not and cannot be kept forever, nor should that lie supersede reality, as it can twist their perception of far more and be self-destructive.
Of course, Shotaro is proven right once more, with Genzo then going after Asuka to use her as a hostage to get Miyabi to abandon the project, with Nazca intervening to allow the dopant, Anomalocaris, and hey, I actually said that right for once, to escape with her.
早く片をつけねえとアスカが
私の町から消え失せたまえ。
フートは貴様らの町なんかじゃねえ
Damn, man! It's rare to see someone intentionally hurt themselves to get free like that.
Now, the show calls Shotaro a fool and reckless for doing so, but those condemnations only apply when one acts without thinking, understanding of what they're doing, or realizing the consequences of their actions, which is not the case here. Shotaro does this with full knowledge of the damage it'd do to him, but it was the best way to get out of that situation, and he had the conviction to follow through.
A lot of the show's knocks to Shotaro are like that, and that is one of my issues with it. Unlike a lot of protagonists Toei puts the focus on in their modern shows, Shotaro actually knows what the fuck he's doing, and the cast rarely acknowledge this. It's oddly contrarian, this relation.
Regardless, it's only after Asuka's kidnapped that Miyabi actually shows she gives a damn about her daughter, racing off to rescue her herself, only for the girl to be held as a human shield when Double arrives.
パパを信じているよなアスカ
Yes, a form for nearly every situation. With Asuka freed, things devolve to Anomalocaris super evolving. Double getting the help of their final vehicle configuration, the Heart Splasher, to race across the water with a giant sea beast.
How is the Heart Splasher floating in the air like that?
Well, regardless, this has fixed the familial thing, with Miyabi ultimately deciding to scrap the tower plan, for now. Meaning, in a way, Museum 1 as well. Mark of a good villain, really. Find the Sea shows us again that Philip right now is the unreliable weak point in the double pair, with him, after one of his random knowledge lookups, running off to learn street dancing, just as Wakana's radio show When I Rocked Through the Office Window tipped Shotaro off to a case of a dopant playing Dark Hero. A teen named Dango hiring him anonymously to sort out the problem of him accidentally hiring the murderous cockroach dopant.
You're probably gonna need a bigger fly swatter. Possibly a can of Raid.
As Queen and Elizabeth reveal, this dopant set up a darknet site which hires him to kill off the worst offenders of the town, but will take pretty much any hit posted there, as even before using the memory, the man behind it was a sociopath, using these incidents and his marks as inspiration for his own twisted comics tales he self-publishes. That eventually leads to Shotaro shutting him down.
Now, why Dango got them involved is the person he'd accidentally set the dopant to kill is his former dance partner, Chizuru Hoshino, who completely, out of nowhere, cut off all contact with him, abandoned dancing, and took up swimming, refusing to even speak to him or explain herself, despite him trying for months on end to get some reason, any reason, why she did so.
The frustration from him being so thoroughly stonewalled led to him, in a moment of stupidity, to accidentally request the hit, and he immediately regretted it and has been doing everything he can to correct this mistake since. He's done the responsible thing in all this, as he really does care for Chizuru, and her cutting him out of her life has harmed him deeply.
And her actual reason for doing so? She is a terrible person.
Her study of synchronized swimming was so she could learn to sync with him better by translating the movements learned in the class to their dancing, an act he would have supported and joined in with if he'd known. But she intentionally didn't tell him, so he would do what he ended up doing, antagonize her to the point she's in tears, so that berating and harassment would self-motivate her to do better.
In other words, she manipulated a healthy, supportive relationship to not be one for her own benefit with how she played with his emotions, to the point outsiders of the whole matter see it as an inherently abusive one.
なんなのよそれ。自分勝手で最低じゃん。
And it all backfired due to her callousness towards his feelings. What a special, sugar-coated snowflake she is. The sad thing is, this is my stepmom on a good day.
Cockroach, however, is not an easy opponent for the 2-in-1 rider, his speed allowing him to one by one steal the pair's memories. After the initial confrontation where Cockroach was at his mercy, is laid by Philip's obsession, making them lose focus on beating him. Thus, they're left with solely Cyclone Joker, the memory user, named Ikari, trying to sell them off back to Kirihiko. Since their first encounter, Kirihiko's been curious about Double and his powers, since none of them are museums make, and the Sonozakis aren't telling him anything about them. Made worse is with Philip out and about, it means museum's recovery agent can come after him.
Sumiroto!
I wish I could make this up, people.
However, all of this is resolved by Philip throwing the two dancers in a room together.
あれこの捕まえ方何か問題あった
Phrasing!
So Chizuru can confess her part in this screwed up situation, which thus allows Philip's obsession to be sated by learning the two signature move, the Heaven's Tornado, which Philip then adapts into their movements as Double to counter Cockroach and recover their memories by street dancing.
I see being a fruit samurai in Philip's future. To be honest, I don't really like this arc due to the duplicitous exasperation that set this all off. Chizuru's conduct is never recognized for how bad it was. All the blame being put on Dango, and yeah, what he did was stupid. I in no way refute that, but people put awful shit on the internet all the time and never expect it to be taken seriously when they should.
And it is a recurring problem that shows involving Riku Sanjo take a while to get going with the setup of the story arc and status quo. They pick up in the teens, but if you didn't watch the early stuff, you can find yourself lost when it starts getting to the good stuff.
Find the Clients and Cockroach, however, does have a point in showing how fallible partnerships and relationships can be if you don't understand what's important. Only think of yourself and disregard the feelings of those around you. It would just be stronger in those elements if, again, Chizuru were called out for her side in causing this instead of everything trying to sell her as the victim.
The S-Terror has Akiko complaining about Shotaro's methodology and wanting to get retraining from Sokichi when he gets back, as Shotaro still hasn't told her.
Except, shouldn't she know? I mean, she showed up with the deed to the place and to evict them. How was she able to do that if it wasn't sent to her by the executor of Sokichi's estate?
It would make more sense if the show has Shotaro trying to avoid explaining what happened, due to what we eventually learn of the Begins Night incident and his part in it, instead of just trying to deny outright that he's dead. That would play more into Shotaro's character, the guilt that is holding him back from telling Akiko, and his wish to carry on in his mentor's stead.
See, just because I love this show doesn't mean there aren't flaws in its storytelling which couldn't have been improved, as that's exactly what they're doing with this running subplot anyways.
Anyways, the next clients, are an assortment of women with a collective missing persons case, all of them going missing from the same workplace.
その仕事って
私です。
Ah, I know our chief suspect then.
As it's obviously another dopant crime, Shotaro tries to keep Akiko out of it as he takes the case. As weeks into knowing each other and the state of the city, she still hasn't caught on that she's a walking dumbass in distress waiting to happen. But she does not listen, instead choosing to impulsively insert herself undercover at the mansion where they all keep going missing, clearly giving herself away with her incompetence at her cover job, a maid of the Sonozakis. You have once again lost your right to complain about Shotaro's methodology when you fuck up so much worse, Akiko.
Surprisingly, this does not tip off the Narumi agency of the malicious nature of this group, mainly because the Sonozakis are surprisingly good at keeping that a secret, despite Sayako repeatedly trying to kill Wakana as a joke.
This is all done while Shotaro's unawares, first going through his context and why this wasn't investigated before, and learning everyone else has actively avoided investigating the Sonozaki estate.
I can only imagine why.
Apparently every weekend, Ryubi hires one of the local confectionery specialists to show off their talents and indulge his sweet tooth, but after which they've all ended up abducted, and Akiko's walked straight into their den. All of the evidence she collects is circumstantial, based on how people outwardly present themselves, instead of any inconsistency of character, and is too frivolous to be of any merit, on top of her then attacking the staff. And she refuses to listen to the one damn person actually trained in this field.
私だって父親譲りの名探偵よ。
俺はおやっさんからちゃんと探偵のいろはを教わってんだよ。こういう時くらいは言うこと聞け。
ちゃんと教わってハーフボイルドなんだ。
And you're not a detective at all! You wonder why everyone constantly treats you like a child? Well, you've never stopped acting like one!
Worse, she paints a target on the back of the next victim, Mai Asakawa, who was among the clients for this case, fearful she would be next after her father was one of those previously abducted. Akiko was the one to encourage her to go through with this and call out her skill in front of everyone in the mansion, meaning it is solely her fault that upon doing this, Sweets comes after her. It's only due to Shotaro managing to get inside after an encounter with Kirihiko that they didn't lose her at any sign of a trail. Hell, the only reason they didn't screw this up entirely was Terror intervened when a fight broke out on his property. Ryubi is actually very irritated by all this, having a dopant active in his home he didn't know about, as it could compromise everything he's working for, and orders his family to stay out of it so the case can be solved and those looking around thrown out.
And then the most amazing thing happens, which salvages Akiko's character, and it doesn't take much, but so many things in modern times fail at it, be they ones that are intentionally meant to be for kids or adults. They call her out for this, and hold her accountable for her actions.
Shotaro entirely dresses her down for her callous, reckless disregard for the safety of their client. For once, Akiko respecting him and every word he shouts at her. He is seriously pissed off, and for once, it's recognized from the beginning that he was in the right.
A lot of the characters I utterly despise never have this happen. Brush off any condemnations directed towards them without thought or reflection. Or otherwise the story they're in gives them an excuse which shows them right or hand-waves away their culpability against all evidence to the contrary. And it's even worse when they act or are villains beforehand, before they are then treated as good guys without ever changing or making amends. Kamen Rider Double could have so easily done that with how Akiko is a comedic foil for Shotaro, but that would have been a mistake. Because that wouldn't have been respecting the intelligence of the audience. That would have betrayed the maturity and sophistication this series presents itself with, in the tone desired from the genre they're homaging, the works in this franchise that have strived for better, or from its creator they're endeavoring to do right by. It's easy for a writer to just ignore the issue entirely, write it off as a quirk or an element of their backstory, but if they never progress, never grow out of what is a negative quality to them, or that negative quality is promoted as a good thing or just ignored, you can destroy everything you're trying to do as it all becomes tainted by what people dislike about them always superseding and coloring any other action they might perform. This saves Akiko from falling into that trap.
And moreover, they give Akiko a reason why she's done this, and it's actually a good reason. Another bullet point to when these things go bad, when their actions are petty. And that is, she's jealous of Shotaro. jealous that he got to be here with her father and learn from him. She was trying to prove herself and it all went wrong. And Shotaro can understand that, as it's not like he's never screwed up a case. But even when he did, it was after already knowing what to do and how to do it right, which she's been refusing to learn.
依頼者を危険にさらす奴は探偵以前に人間として屈だ。自分を頼ってきてくれた人間なんだぞってさ。これ以上無茶しないでくれ。おやっさんは俺が。
Damn it, Akiko!
Yeah, she once again thinks she can fix this with no idea of what she's doing, approaching Ryubi at work to set up her plan, which after Shotaro has a moment with the chief antagonist, goes into play. What's Akiko's plan? Why, it's a Nick Charles reveal!
Who's Nick Charles? Only one of the greatest film detectives ever!
Bring them all up here, everybody that's mixed up in the case. Let's shake them all up and see what we get. All this time, I've been waiting for someone to make a slip. Someone has made it.
God, I love the Thin Man movies. And most of the works of Dashiell Hammett, honestly.
But Akiko screws this up too, as there's no proof when she declares...
白塚さん私冗談じゃないわ証拠はなんか丸っこいしいつもお菓子ばっかり食べてるし
You were just the square peg trying to fit into a round hole. How did these get in my hands?
No, the real culprit is Yukiko, the head maid who moonlights as a famous food critic. The food Akiko made for this little get-together as impetus for everyone being in the same room, having proven itself offensive to her palate. Sweets! And she's been kidnapping the cooks so they could cook for her, and only her. Her abduction of Mai and Akiko leading the rest to her hideout, though in following her, Shotaro reveals his identity as Double accidentally to Kirihiko, as he also gives chase. This sequence also showcasing the hard-boileders start dash mode for high-velocity pursuit, which is then used to throw Nazca off their trail. Still, I hope you've learned something from all this, Akiko. To not rush into doing something without thought.
Yep, she really has. Doesn't stop her from being annoying at times, though.
The Revenge V opens with a woman being hit by a car.
And people call this a silly series.
A week later, Shotaro is called out to the same location, only to see the car hit someone else.
Talk about a viral core.
He reports this, only to be arrested by Makura, because this is Japan's criminal justice system.
カツ丼でも食うか
取調べ室でカツ丼出てくるのは昔のドラマだけだ。
昔のドラマだけ。
But Shotaro's cleared when the autopsy shows the victim died of a massive viral infection.
Okay, taking all bets. Was he plagued by Amazon cells, the DBoss virophage, or a case of game syndrome?
Still, since he already took the man's case, and this being a dopant crime, Shotaro decides to follow through on the investigation, all while Kirihiko has to deal with a dealer who sold a bad guy a memory, which has screwed up data analysis on it. However, the dealer says it's not defective, it's just doing something unexpected from what the memory's data is sending back. As this memory has allowed its user to possess a car, and that car is being used to kill the Yakuza that originally drove it to kill the woman who is the memory's user, Sachi Yamamura. All revealed when she momentarily ghosts out of it. Her memory? It's not one that should be able to do that. Hers is called Virus.
やあ翔太郎やっと謎が解明したよはバカが風邪をひかないのはいろいろ思い悩まない結果ストレスがたまらず
Oh? Explain why Akiko spends the entire episode sick. Yes, more attempted ragging on Shotaro that falls flat. This is actually a Japanese superstition.
Initially, though, the group thinks it's Sachi's brother Kohei that's committing these acts in revenge. But Shotaro makes an effort to try and talk him down, not believing it's what she would have wanted. And he is both right and wrong in that. The justice he wants isn't what's being performed, and in what Sachi herself wants. Nonetheless, Shotaro has a good reason why he's stopping them from killing criminals.
たとえ人間のクズでもこの町の人間だ。殺させるわけにはいかねえんだよ。それに復讐なんかで公平の悲しみは消えやしない。
Food for thought for when we get to
Axel!
But even as Shotaro breaks the car, the truth of this virus dopant trapped inside is revealed, releasing the plague on the unsuspecting. As this whole case goes a lot deeper than this, and all complicated that this was all set in motion by a man named Yushina, Sachi's fiancé. Sachi's cheating, womanizing, marriage swindler fiancé, whose actions prompted her to buy the memory originally. But the virus dopant, in trying to attack him, stumbles around drunkenly. Not all there, and not anywhere near as strong as it should be. Though this is only revealed when Kirihiko brings this to Sayako in an attempt to win himself back in her graces with his recent failures. But she has seen it all before, from those improperly inserting a memory.
Virus, as Sayako reveals, if properly utilized, can wipe out entire cities in a single use. It's one of the single most volatile memories museums ever created. The user becoming a living bioweapon with untold devastative impact, and they just put it out on the streets with no regards for how that could blow up in their faces. This is Aperture Science levels of testing insanity.
Why it didn't is due to that car collision. Sachi, in fear for her life, inserted the memory in hopes she'd survive the impact. But the impact disturbed the transformation process, so the dopant's form and her consciousness were split from her body, possessing that car. Virus's vast power diverted to maintaining a form first over anything else. It's why this kind of spectating separate from the body and the memory isn't useful to museum. The resultant entity has less than 1% of their true power.
And for those wondering how double works then, with Philip doing the same, it's because Shotaro's the physical basis for their empowerment to build on, and the driver doing the heavy lifting.
Philip figures this out himself after they're shown Sachi's comatose body, figuring that he might be able to use her living connector to connect her mind and draw her back since the memory is active within her. Talk her down from this. Unfortunately, with solely the mind to influence, the corrupting effects of the unrefined Gaia memories have gone into overdrive, ravaging her mind until only hate remains. After buying the memory, she had second thoughts about using it. Had the accident not happened, it's likely she'd have just thrown it away, as she intended to, and just picked up what was left of her life.
Gaia memories. Not even once!
But she wouldn't have been put in that situation, had she never gotten the memory to begin with. So all they can do...
俺たちにできることは
トリガーマキシマムドライブ
トリガーエクスプロージョン
あんたすげえな化け物めざまあみろ
お前の罪を数えろ
Yeah, considering everything that happened, Shotaro doesn't have the siblings arrested. Everyone's a criminal in this situation. There's no justice found in further punishing those who were victims of circumstances beyond their control to begin with, even with the acts committed.
Though from all this, the revenge, virus, and victim arc closes with Shotaro getting sick.
Then maybe he isn't an idiot.
The cue on the radio finally gives us focus on Wakana and more of the inner workings of the Sonozaki family, with a stunner of Wakana's that has been mentioned intermittently finally confronting her, trying to make her his with a memory.
Oh, you are just precious. Masquerades are the shocker combat men of this series, and they make the most entertaining squeals when they die. Show them, Wakana! Yeah, he did. Masquerades are one of a few dopant memory that, when they're broken, kill the user. It has to do with them being one of those developed before safety features were installed into them to just eject the memory. This wasn't exactly clear in the early show why that was, but thanks to later expansions revolving around Sokichi, it's shown that feature was needed if they wanted to net themselves their test subjects. It's questionable whether the Sonozaki family's memories are those that kill their user as well, considering how long Ryubi has had terror, but I'd more figure the belts they use theirs with to prevent their memory's other side effects would stop that too.
Anyways, she goes to work, reading off rumors of a skull-faced man prowling around the city.
And we will be getting to him very soon.
Before the main plot starts, with another stalker calling himself Mr. Question. No relation to him. Question destroys the windmill closest to the station. Shotaro jumps into action to help, sidestepping the paparazzi to get to her, as she's being blamed for this.
Though through the lens of this being caused by the memories her family's distributing, it kinda is.
Still, when Shotaro approaches her, he's rebuffed by her being an utter bitch.
And this is why it's terrible to meet your heroes. At least I make it clear I'm an impatient asshole.
Philip nonetheless wants to look into it, enraptured with Wakana, as Ryubi is likewise worried Wakana has been targeted by one of their test subjects. Psycho, though, sees it as a good excuse to initiate Wakana into the family business of evil that, bar having a Gaia memory, she has mostly avoided.
Yeah, the two utterly hate each other. Psycho taking great satisfaction at seeing Wakana's career potentially destroyed from this, as it forced the younger of the pair to be fully under her thumb.
Instead, Wakana gets the police involved in hopes of catching Mr. Question with a phone trace when he next calls in. Shotaro's presence allowing Philip to come up with an idea to trick the man into revealing his location, in part from the clues from his little game. This dopant, violence, is vastly stronger physically than anything Double can dish out right now, thus escapes from this first encounter. And Wakana's not happy about that, angrily storming into the office to berate him and ask how he figured out Question's tactics, only for Philip to reveal his status as a superfan. Coupled with his recall abilities, it's not unsurprising he's memorized everything about her, including the details Question was using from a recently published article on her. And this does impress her. Thus, Shotaro's officially placed on bodyguard duty so he doesn't have to shove himself in during the next incident. But when they next pin violence in a fight, Claydol intervenes as well. And for coming into contact with her like this, Philip's able to recognize the person under the mutant form. This momentary distraction causing violence to crush her.
Fortunately, Claydol's special ability is regeneration. Otherwise, wow, taken out by a filler arc baddie.
Still, after such a stressful incident, it's amazing how quickly she can shift back into a work mentality. Oh hey Mai! Glad to see you're doing well after the S-Terror arc.
Yeah, another thing that helps sell this show and its setting, the clients of the arcs, a lot of them are not one-offs, but make intermittent appearances through the rest of the series.
But from Question's next call-in, Philip realizes the information he's using is too specific, too intimate.
Not like that!
Point is, he's likely among them. But when Wakana shows up again at the office out of the blue, Philip needs confirmation that Claydol was her, asking if anyone's ever wanted to kill her, and Wakana candidly revealing her sister. The sad thing is, it didn't used to be this bad, but when Ryubi started to treat her more like a princess while placing extreme pressure on Sayako to excel, the animosity between them spun out of control, especially as the one who kept them together was no longer there, as she once had a brother.
Factor in Philip's amnesia, original captivity within museum, rude access to all things Gaia library shoved in his head, the fact that he's around 17, then later 18 in the series, and the number of people in that fragmented familial memory seen back in the M arc. Yeah, it's easy to guess the answer to this right here and now. And back when it was airing, most people did. Philip is a Sonozaki.
Which in hindsight was too soon to give all that away, as there is zero ambiguity or subtlety to that.
Not help that this is a Keiichi Hasegawa pen arc, and he doesn't do subtlety well.
When that now obvious answer is not given to Philip until the late end of the series. Had they not tried so hard to give concrete facts in this, it could have been more inferred initially to be a childhood friend and not a brother, one that nonetheless inspired her to be a better person than she was. All it would take is some dialogue substitutions and a different staging of things, so it'd be more like, I had someone that made me want to be better than who I am, but I lost them. And ever since I feel as I've lost sight of myself as well. Something that would also effectively infer the pain of their absence, without explicitly tying it down to a lost family member like the Q arc does here.
Then again, with how I messed up the whole Sigma is Koga's childhood training teammate thing in the Makai Senka review, since the evidence that exists in all of 2 seconds of the actual show, there is such a thing as being too subtle. But as a series where the mystery of Philip's history and connections to museum play a big part in the show, it feels like it's spoiling the mystery too early. Especially since in the next episode, in the Begins Night film, then try to see more of the story arc tied to that mystery, when the ultimate answer was already given to the audience.
But yeah, this is why Philip is fascinated with her. Because on some level, even if he has no real memory from before, he recognizes her as his sister.
And now I am contractually obligated to make the following joke.
I am your father. That's not true! That's impossible! And Princess Leia is your sister. That's not true! That's improbable! And the Empire will be defeated by Ewoks. That's very unlikely.
Because of this conversation, however, Philip manages to get the last keyword needed to pin the culprit.
最後のキーワードは歪んだ愛情。
じゃあ姫、今から君に最高のプレゼントをするよ。
いらないわ、そんなもの。あげよう。
Ageo is Wakana's manager, who she's abused the hell out of with their brattiness, seen throughout the arc, so it does make sense in hindsight. The violent antics a corruption of an actual affection the man has for her, likely born through the lens of how horribly she's treated him. However, he didn't do it alone, but was influenced into using the memory by an accomplice, one of Wakana's radio personality rivals, Sayaki Motoko, who is also seen intermittently in the arc appearing to support Wakana through this, even though she also wanted her gone. Ageo needed a memory to become a monster. All it took for Sayaki was one bad day. However, when she has Sayaki at her mercy, Wakana stays her hand, the recently dredged up memories of her brother making her falter. As vilely as she can act to others, she doesn't really want to harm any of them.
Kirihiko, however, has no such compunction.
園崎家にとって危険な要素は
Violence is dealt with using a simple application of Luna Trigger, but with Philip's awareness of Wakana being a Gaia memory user, and most certainly her deep connection with Museum due to her using the Commander's Gaia driver, he is convinced she's involved with those who used him before.
若菜さん、ガイアメモリを持っていますか？
いいえ、持っていないわ。
そうですか。
And despite how she wants to meet him in person, the idea of that scares him, and keeps that from coming to pass. As how can he trust her if she's lying? How can he be certain she won't just turn him back over to the heads of Museum if they see each other in real life? He can't. But, in a way, she wasn't lying. For in the fallout of the entire incident, she abandoned Claydol, Ryubi taking it from where it fell.
The question of what may have come had things taken a different path.
Oh well, at least with Wakana's job saved, they still have the communal link of the airwaves.
なんとあちこちで今死人が蘇っているのです。助けて、仮面ライダー。
Which is where we'll pick things up in the next video, for it's time to close a bunch of teased bits of lore from the other side of the series with the theatrical event, Begins Night! Bring a flashlight.